Hey y'all, if there's one thing I love, it's hurling myself from building to building at dangerously high speeds just for kicks.
Marvel's Spider-Man, a game about hurling yourself from building to building at dangerously high speeds just for kicks.
I'm already a fan.
Released in 2018, the game received critical acclaim for making you feel like both Spider-Man and Peter Parker. Now, this game takes place about 8 years after Peter Parker was bitten by the radioactive spider, so it really makes you wonder, what did happen before?
You know, I do wonder what happened before.
Marvel's Spider-Man Hostile Takeover, the official prequel to the blockbuster action video game. Released in 2019, written by David Liss, this book is fairly unknown among fans of the game. I mean, I only found out about it through scrolling through Instagram.
This is outrageous!
Now, this book takes place about 8 months before the game, and tells the story of Spider-Man learning to be greater, unlike the game, where Spider-Man learns to be greater. The book starts out with Spider-Man doing average Spider-Man stuff, such as stopping a robbery of a snake store.
Oh yeah, those exist. Oh my god, those exist!
Spider-Man stops the robbery and finds that the robber's just a kid, so he lets him off easy and asks him a few questions. The robber, named Andy, tells Spider-Man that he was working for Scorpion, who's currently on heavy police watch. He also gives Spider-Man an address of a construction site. Upon arriving, Spider-Man finds 4 normal guys and apprehends them Spider-Man style.
Oh yeah!
Then his spider sense tingles.
Oh no!
Now, despite what he originally thought, this is not Scorpion. It's some guy dressed in black who can move exactly like Spider-Man. Due to him moving exactly like Spider-Man, no one wins, and they both have to flee. While swinging back to his apartment, Peter sees flashing red and blue lights. The snake store robber Andy had been killed. Spider-Man was kindly greeted at gunpoint by a police officer named Yuri Watanabe, who informed him that he was the #1 suspect in the murder. Upon looking at security footage, Spider-Man was seen dropping from the sky, shooting Andy, and swinging away. The only proof Spider-Man had that it wasn't him was a few very minute details in the suit that very few would notice. Except for Yuri, and 3 random guys, and Scorpion, and Shocker, 2 police officers, and MJ, and... Along with Spider-Man, Peter Parker has his own problems. Unbeknownst to him, his girlfriend Mary Jane wants to break up with him for reasons unknown to him and us, as well as having a horrible boss and a new intern at the lab who's a freshman at Empire State University named Danica, who was definitely into Peter. And Peter, on top of it all, can barely get any sleep or find time to be Peter Parker because his life is absolutely absorbed by Spider-Man's problems. Speaking of Spider-Man's problems, the Spidey doppelganger, now known as the Blood Spider, was hired by Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, to take down the real Spider-Man.
The background footage can tell you how that one turned out.
The Blood Spider's real name is Michael Bingham, and he believes that he's the real Spider-Man. But he's not, right? Right?
He's not. I don't even think they bring this up again in the entire book. I mean, there's so much potential in Michael believing that he's the real Spider-Man. They could have a huge plot twist at the end of him actually being the real Spider-Man and us flip-flopping between the two and totally messing with our brains. But no, this arc had so much potential, but he didn't do anything with it.
Back to some Peter Parker problems. After talking to Danica for a while, she starts to get weird about Peter and follows him to his sandwich place on his date with MJ, who is about to break up with Peter. Police drive by outside, causing Peter to leave right as Danica walks into the sandwich joint, and being his superhero self, Peter leaves before MJ can tell him how she feels. Spider-Man goes to stop a decoy hostage situation at a bank while the Blood Spider fights Shocker outside of the sandwich joint, resulting in an explosion and Danica, along with many others, dying. Spider-Man goes to find Shocker at the Bar with No Name, a place that many supervillains hang out together. When Spider-Man arrives, many people are looking at him because, they're supervillains. Anyways, Spider-Man is led to Shocker, who is super depressed because his suit and his website got stolen.
Shocker.com!
After a few awkward interactions and death glares, Spider-Man is escorted out by Scorpion, who tells Spidey that he's on his side due to many kidnappings and disappearances around the city. This also goes nowhere and is never talked about again in the book. Through the website's IP address, Spider-Man finds an apartment building. No room number, so he has to look through people's windows and hope no one sees him. He eventually finds someone dressed up in a Shocker costume, yanks him out the window, and starts questioning him. Turns out he's an actor named Phil Simmons. He was hired by Wilson Fisk and the Blood Spider to intimidate people in a designated location as the Shocker. He had no idea bombs would be set and had almost nothing to do with it. Despite this, he was still arrested because, the whole being involved thing. Spider-Man then goes around the city stopping multiple Fisk operations and construction sites.
Wonder where I've heard that before.
Maya Lopez then takes on the character of Echo.
Oh yeah, so throughout the book there's been a lot of random cut-ins that completely distract from the main story starring Maya Lopez. She's mad at Fisk because he won't let her be the Blood Spider because she thinks Spider-Man killed her father, so she wants revenge.
Echo falls.
This is taking up like 10 chapters of the 30-chapter book and I just summarized it in like 15 seconds. I'm going insane.
These sections of the book would randomly pop up and would basically be the exact same thing of every time, following the formula of Maya talks to Fisk, Fisk says no, Maya gets mad. That's it, repeating that for about 10 chapters. Sorry about that. Anyways, Echo follows Spider-Man around until he notices and they fight. He realizes that she can mimic his movements exactly but has no enhanced abilities. The next morning, right as Peter goes out as Spider-Man, he gets a call from work telling him that he's fired. Afterward, he goes to see Mary Jane to check up on her, only for her to break up with him, causing Peter to be severely depressed for several months. After an undisclosed amount of months, Yuri Watanabe calls Spider-Man to tell him that she's been searching through some files, and that she found out that Fisk actually killed Echo's father, and not Spider-Man. With this newly found information, Peter meets up with Echo on a rooftop to convince her that Fisk has killed her father. Spider-Man shows her files, security tapes, everything that they've found, and she decides to help him. Together, they break into Fisk Tower. They find a safe, and when they open it, it's empty.
What a twist!
Also, Fisk and the Blood Spider are behind them. After they fight, Echo and Spider-Man escape. The Blood Spider then reveals that he's betrayed Fisk and is working for Oscorp.
Oh, what a twist. This twist just never really worked for me. I mean, it's a big twist, obviously. He betrayed Fisk, but, he betrayed Fisk, the Kingpin. That's, their whole thing. If you betray them, you're gonna die. But Fisk doesn't really do anything. He just kinda, oh, wow, that sucks. And then the Blood Spider escapes. That's it. They could have done so much with so many things in this book, and they just don't.
Days later, the Blood Spider is defeated by Spider-Man. Peter is hired at a new lab by Otto Octavius, and Mary Jane still hasn't talked to him.
That was Spider-Man Hostile Takeover. The end of the book leads directly into the game, only being off by a couple of days. It was a pretty enjoyable read and actually made replaying the game for this video a lot more interesting and a lot more fun. But the writing can be pretty lazy at times. The perspective shifts come out of nowhere and are super disorienting, as well as taking aspects directly from the game and changing almost nothing about them. But besides that, I mean, it's alright.